Warning, this show contains lots of vulgarity, questionable content, and the Angry Jackalope might just be a crazy motherfucker. You've been warned.
Welcome to the end. We are the age of apocalypse, about the children of chaos and creation. Bread hates devastation.
What's up, YouTube? Angry Jackalope Raw Bricks here on a stormy, rainy day. You might hear some thunder and rumbling in the background. That's because I got a storm going on. I've got roughly 30 minutes before I have to pick up my son. So I'm going to try to do a quick little reading. So let's get this shit started. We're going to start on the Convergence 2012. Enough of you guys chimed in and said, fuck yeah, start reading shit, dude. I want to experience the story of Convergence 2012. And so I'm going to do that. And I wanted you guys to know I listened to you, and I appreciate the fuck out of you. So I'm going to go ahead and read. I got some of these on order. I went ahead today and I ordered some. And you guys that, chimed in and said, hey, we want you to read, as a way of saying thank you, I'm going to do a quick little contest, and one of you guys is actually going to win a signed copy of the book. And so if you guys keep commenting on it and let me know what you think as we're going along. I got a bunch of other stuff. I got some stickers. I got some bookmarks, bookmarks and stuff. Not with all the little frizzy dizzy like this guy, but there's some that were done that's really nice. I'll have some of those to give out too, and we'll just go from there. All right? So, without further ado, let's get this shit started. Okay? Convergence 2012, written by Robert R. Ricks, that be me. And I'm going to start off. Hear that thunder? That's fucking awesome. Chapter 1. Arrival of a Watcher. The air was stale and thin, missing the freshness and vitality that ಝನari was used to. It was hard breathing the foreign air, and a stagnant taste nearly made her vomit. She wondered how the humans could possibly stand such living conditions. In her mind, it was not living at all. She shook the thought away as she reminded herself of why she was there. She was in a small structure, obviously a home. She felt constrained, and the walls were far too close for her liking. She scanned the room and noticed that it was a bedroom of a young child who was sleeping just a few feet away from her. The child's breathing was loud and seemed labored to her, much too labored for one so small. It must be the air, she thought, again gagging. She examined the small child, and she smiled as she noticed his vibrant aura. It was a pale blue with strong swaths of pink and yellow flowing around his entire little form. She needed to understand her environment better, and since the child was sleeping, she decided it would not harm her mission to adapt via his memories. She stood over him and positioned her long slinger fingers just barely above his flesh. The warmth of his skin was surprising to her. Even though she was at least half an inch away, she could feel waves of heat radiating from his head. Emotions and memories flooded into her mind. A jumble of wild fragments presented themselves to her, and she had to work hard to rejoin them into cohesive timelines. The child was named Jeff Hill, and he was 8 years old. He had lived in the house with his mother Diane his whole life, which made some things easy for ಝನari. When she had enough information, she slowly moved back away from Jeff. She looked around again, and everything was familiar to her, as if she had lived there her entire life. Looking back at Jeff, she motioned over him, and a faint bluish mark appeared on his forehead. She had managed to find a suitable human, and felt it was a good omen. The first human she had come across was worthy of the mark. Glancing down, she realized she would have to find some clothing and clean up. The shift had left her covered in an off-white glazed material that was beginning to dry and powder. She silently slid into the bathroom closest to her. Jeff's mother, Diane, was raising the child alone, and only she, Jeff, and a family pet, the cat named Sheba, lived in the house. Damn, you hear that rain? Holy shit, it's coming down. There was no threat near, so ಝನari relaxed a bit as she examined herself in the bathroom. She was slim, as many of her kind, and had deep brooding eyes that rarely blinked. The eyes were the deepest blue that shifted as if an ocean roared within them. Her skin was smooth and soft as silk, pale in color, a milky complexion that shimmered slightly. She had long, flowing crimson hair that hung down to the floor and curled just above the surface, almost as if it did not want to encounter the ground. Her build was closer to that of a teenager than of a full-grown woman. Small breasts with very athletic, muscular build. When she moved, it was with purpose and grace. Sheba the cat watched her from a window to the rear of the bathroom. The cat bowed its head as if to pay respect to the visitor. Sonara examined herself in a mirror, and her gaze stopped at her necklace, which adorned her long, thin neck. The necklace, known as a gakkukun, had 10 solid gold slender slabs, each measuring around 6 inches long and 1/4 inch wide. Off to either side of the gold were 11 smaller silver slabs, roughly half the size of the Golden Brothers. Each slab had an engraving on it, which glowed softly. The engravings extended down the length of the slabs and wrapped around small stones of different shades at the bottom. They were bound together by an ebony thread, which seemed too fragile and delicate to hold the weight of the necklace. The black material was amazingly flexible and strong at the same time. She gazed at the dust on her flesh and reached up to the center of her necklace and gently rubbed a 3rd golden slab there, and in barely audible phrases spoke. The necklace shimmered brightly for a moment, and the dust exploded off her form and simply disappeared. The air was suddenly filled with a floral scent 100 times sweeter than anything on earth. Sheba sniffed the air and began to purr in satisfaction. "In a short while, this is what you'll smell all the time, my dear friend." Sheba nodded, settled down to sleep, still purring. It was at that moment Sonari heard the mother, Diane, stir from her bed and slowly walk towards the bathroom. Diane stood for a moment in front of her bathroom and regarded the door. Her son never closed the bathroom door, which drove her nuts. She had scolded him many times as she walked in on him doing his business. She peered into his dark bedroom, and she could see his motionless form sleeping. Then a smell came from the bathroom, gentle at first, but it grew stronger as each second passed. The scent she had never smelled before. It was so pure, so beautiful, she had to take a step back. What was that smell? Her heart pounded in her chest. Someone was in her bathroom, and regardless of how wonderful he or she smelled, they were still in her bathroom. She slowly reached for the door handle. Her hand was trembling. She paused a few inches away and examined the door again. "Damn it, Diane, get it together and open the door," she thought to herself. She forced herself to turn the handle and flung the door open. It creaked and squealed sharply. She walked in, turned on the light. The air there was heavenly. What could have made such a wonderful smell? She wondered aloud. She slowly opened a shower. Nobody was there. Chef must have closed the door when he was done, she whispered to herself. Sheba could see Sonari, but Diane could not. Sonari thought about speaking with Diane, but after seeing how badly damaged her aura was, decided against it. Instead, she stood and waited. Diane finished up and headed back to her bedroom. Flipping the switch on the way out, she said, "Well, if you find out, let me know, okay? Gonna go back to bed. Got a long day tomorrow." A moment later, she was gone. Sonari waited until Diane lay down, and gently, she placed her into a deep sleep. Within 3 seconds, Diane was snoring softly. Sonari glanced at Sheba and nodded. "She will wake up in a few hours. Yes, I know the air purge was not needed to cleanse myself, but the smell was too much for me. I just needed a little more time to get used to this foul air." Sonari knew most people would not be able to see her, but she did not want those that could to draw attention to her, because once she was pointed out, the others would see her as well. Therefore, she decided to try to blend in as much as possible. She again reached up to the necklace, and with her right hand, she softly caressed the last slab on it and began whispering. With her left hand, she motioned, and the magazine floated slowly up to eye level. She motioned with her slender fingers, and the pages began to slowly turn. She regarded the images on the pages, and she shook her head. Why cover their natural beauty with these material masks? She wondered. After the magazine had reached its end, she completed a ritual, and the air shimmered around her. Her long, flowing crimson hair began to snake itself into elaborate braids that formed a beautiful Celtic pattern and hung down her back. Clothing hung on her as if her skin shifted multiple colors until she settled on a well-tanned complexion. Her body form shifted slightly. Her chest expanded outwards. Her eyes and hair shifted colors and finally ended on a dark brown shade. She turned again and glanced at Sheba. "What do you think? Will I pass casual scrutiny?" Sheba stretched and hopped down and did 3 circles around Zanari's feet. "Ah, yes, the shoes. I forgot the humans need them, yes?" More whispering and shoes materialized around her feet as she lifted each foot. Sheba meowed and Zanari smiled. "Thank you for your help. I will not forget it. Yes, you are on a list as well as the child." Sheba paused and stared at Zanari. "The mother? I am sorry. I do not think she will make it past the test. I'll make a note and follow up with her specifically, though, as a favor, for your help. Does that please you?" Sheba meowed. "When?" "December 12, 2012 on Earth's calendar. 1 year from today, it begins. We'll have 9 days once it starts. Sheba purred again. "Till we meet again," said Zanari, as she passed through the wall like a ghost to the sleeping world. Chapter 2. The Elder. December 12, 2011, San Francisco, 2:08 a.m. The park was quiet, and when ᶠᶸᶜᵏ shifted, there was no one around to witness his arrival. He stood there for a moment and collected his thoughts. Undoubtedly, the Watchers had arrived, as he was the last to have shifted. 5,000 Watchers were dispatched across the planet to mark the worthy and bear witness to his test. A single year to test and choose roughly 1 billion humans. It was a daunting task. He stood there and shook his head slowly. He knew it had to be done, and he was destined and prepared to play his role, a role he had spent the better part of 1,000 years preparing for. He paused for a brief moment and could feel the others. He was satisfied they had all made it. The fact that the others had survived the shift unscathed was a testament to their training and preparedness. Still, he wondered if what they were doing was right. He knew they could not save all the humans. Most of that was the humans' fault. But still, he wished there was something that could be done. But still, he wished there was something that could be less intrusive to gauge the ones who could be attuned. He closed his eyes and placed his hand over the great necklace which hung heavy around his neck. It was similar to the necklace that Zanari and the other Watchers possessed, just 3 times as large, and one of the original 10 that survived the arrival of the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki on Earth. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ had been on the crust many times during his training and knew how to blend in with the humans. He had already managed to secure several identities as well as amass large fortunes, which would aid him on his mission. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ stood at 5 foot 5 inches tall and had deep sea green mane of hair that was wild and flowing. It gently hung in the middle of his back. On his face, there was a beard neatly trimmed into a V that extended 2 inches below his chin. His features were strong and bold, and yet there was a soft sadness around his eyes. He had eyes of a man who knew his own destiny and was not afraid of it. His skin was a soft tan with a shimmering pale red set of markings that covered his entire body. The living fractal markings were identical on both sides, forming an interconnecting tribal design that extended from the center of his chest outwards. His eyes were the deepest blue, and the storm that raged within shifted and flowed constantly. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ's build was very muscular, with muscle bands not seen on humans. It was one of the distinct differences between the men and women of his kind. The women were almost identical to the human women, where the men were physically stronger with extra sets of muscles, which allowed them to easily outperform a normal human male twice their size by a factor of 4. He took a deep breath and with pure thought alone activated the gaklakun that hung around his neck. The center stone flashed for a brief second, and his form shifted, grew outwards. He stood 6 foot 6 inches tall with a deep brown skin complexion, heavy build to support half of his actual strength, and no hair on his face or head. His eyes were piercing, and he chose a dark green for the final color. He had the build of a linebacker and yet moved stealthily like a cat. In this form, he was known to the humans as Desmond Washington. He was wearing a silk suit, black in color with a slight green trim. The tie was green, and had a pattern of a great tree with roots running the bottom length of the tie and branches reaching up through the top. He looked like he was worth $1 million, and if truth were told, he was worth much, much more. He sighed and began walking. The sigh was not a sigh of boredom, but more of pity. He could hear the short distance away several people sleeping in makeshift shelters, and the frost on his breath told him it was cold out, cold enough to kill humans. In order to affect him, it would have to be much colder. He walked a few hundred feet and paused near a man who was passed out with a bottle tucked firmly under his arm and bundled as much as he could be. He shivered slightly. ᶠᶸᵏ reached into his inside pocket and pulled out a wallet. Opening it revealed credit cards, IDs, and a billfold filled with large bills. He examined the man briefly, and after noting his aura, nodded to himself. "The morning will be much better, friend. Sleep well." His hand motioned over the sleeping form, and warmth passed from him to the shivering man. He could feel the cold pang of addiction, the heartache of lost love, the pain of the system treating this man like a piece of filth. The shivering passed, and the man slept peacefully for the first time in years. He slipped the man $5,000 and took the bottle from him. "You won't need this anymore. I wish your last year to be a happy one. Take this. Start your path of happiness without any of these shackles." He walked on a few more paces and saw another man. After reviewing his aura, he slipped the man the bottle and continued on his way. He could see the street, and there was light traffic flowing through the city like blood through the arteries of a concrete behemoth that refused to sleep. The stars were out, and the sky was clear, which was unusual for San Francisco this time of year. He knew all of this because he had sampled several individuals over the years to prepare for his Desmond personality. The stars dully winked at him, and the moon's glow was a dim version of the natural radiant glory. He missed seeing things for what they really were, and he was anxious. His thoughts were interrupted as he heard footsteps quickly approaching. 3 thugs had chosen the wrong person to try to rob. Granted, 2 of the 3 were bruisers, and they were armed with knives. Normally, they would have easily taken out a human of ᶠᶸᵏ's size. However, they were dealing with an elite warrior of the Anukai, not a human. He waited until the last possible moments to slide to his left and spin. Using the momentum of the first man against him, he easily tossed him 10 yards up and to the right. With a single punch, he broke the neck of the second assailant instantly. The final man had a pistol out and had ᶠᶸᵏ dead by right. With a thought, time suddenly shifted and slowed, which allowed ᶠᶸᵏ to dodge right and roll under the gunman's outreached arm, which he effortlessly shattered as the gun fired. The bullet easily missed ᶠᶸᵏ, but hit the first assailant between the eyes, as ᶠᶸᵏ knew it would. The gunman only saw a brief blur before the flash of white searing light flashed within his mind's eye, and the pain filled his world. He fell to the ground, screaming. ᶠᶸᵏ whispered a single word. The gunman was silent and staring. What the fuck?" he asked as he stared in horror at the bloody compound fracture of both of his arms. ᶠᶸᵏ grinned, perfect teeth at him. "What do you mean?" Why ain't I hurting no more?" Blood ran freely from the bones which jutted out of his flesh. "Because I want to talk with you." ᶠᶸᵏ examined the man and peered deeply into him. He saw pain, death, drugs, brutality, and other negative experiences. As he studied the man, he saw something else as well, something he had not seen in a long while, and he smiled. ᶠᶸᵏ learned much about the human named Tim Christensen, aka Big T, but he decided he would be perfect. What about, motherfucker?" "Tim, how would you like a job?" What? "I said, how would you like a job?" "What the fuck are you talking about, man? You fucking with my head or what?" "No." ᶠᶸᵏ stared harder, lifted a hand, and placed a single finger on Tim's head. A faint bluish glow mark appeared on Tim's forehead. The mark was there for the watchers to see. Tim was now a marked agent of ᶠᶸᵏ, and there were certain benefits to it, but also he would be on a very short leash. "You will do what I say, when I say, and when I call you on this phone." Reaching into his pocket, he revealed a HC Droid cell phone. "Oh, you're fucking tripping. Sorry, man, but you broke my fucking arms. How am I supposed to take that? I can't do shit." ᶠᶸᵏ paused, examined Tim's arms, and nodded to himself. "Yes, let's fix those." He closed his eyes for a brief moment and then abruptly slapped upwards on the base of Tim's arms, lifting Tim to his feet. Tim was expecting more blinding pain and braced himself, and instead, warmth passed along his arms, and he watched as the bones snapped back into proper position and the skin healed up quickly, leaving a faint pink scar on both arms. What the fuck are you? Never mind that. How much we require to do my bidding? Your what? My work. How much? Tim, you can put your arms down. Tim had not realized his arms were still stretched out before him. He let them fall to his sides. His mind was reeling. None of this was possible. He felt dizzy. He opened and closed his hands slowly and bent his wrist. His arms were his again, and he took the cell phone, hands shaking, all the while trying to comprehend what was happening. 500 a day, he quickly blurted out. I'll make it $1,000 a day, and we'll deposit it into this account. Opening his wallet, he handed Tim a debit card. The code to access is 6577. Serious? Tim's eyes widened as he heard the numbers. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ paused and looked at him. Do I appear to be joking? Tim shook his head slowly. Dude, that code is the last four numbers of your Social Security. Yes, I know. That's why I chose it, so you wouldn't forget. Man, don't take this the wrong way or nothing, but are you the fucking devil? At that, ᶠᶸᶜᵏ laughed. That, my friend, is truly funny. I'm sure when everything is said and done, many of you will feel that way, but some will think I'm far from that. So do we have a deal? Tim looked at his fallen friends and then cautiously looked from his arms to ᶠᶸᶜᵏ and swallowed slowly. His eyes darted to the pistol on the ground for just a brief moment. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ retrieved the pistol, handed it to Tim with a grin. You're looking at this. Do we have a deal? Yes or no? He took the pistol from ᶠᶸᶜᵏ, making sure he held it in a non-threatening way, and slowly nodded his head. Good. First things first. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ motioned over Tim's body. The addictions to meth, cigarettes, and alcohol were purged from his system, and Tim dropped to the ground as his body reeled from it. Black liquid dripped from his skin and eyes, and with a great heave, a black mass projected from his mouth and landed on the ground in front of him, steaming in the frosty air. I could have made this painless, but I want you to remember it. That way, you will not go back to the poison. I will know if you do, and worse, you will know if you do. Therefore, your job for today is to stay clean and get your woman clean. If you can't get her clean, lose her. I will call on you soon. Be ready. Tim sat there for a few moments, breathing deeply with the foulest taste he had ever had in his mouth. His head was pounding, but for the first time in a long while, it was clear. He could think. He took a single long, deep breath and was amazed he didn't fall into a coughing fit. Sure thing, man. Any fucking thing you want. Clean up the language. You're working for me. I don't care for it. Okay, no problem, man. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ turned at that, started on his way again. Tim looked at his pistol, which suddenly felt very heavy in his hands, and watched the tall man until he was out of sight. He slowly stood and glanced at his dead friends. Fuck, guys. I'm sorry. He started running then, and didn't stop until he got home, 36 minutes later. Alright, let's see how we're doing on time. Let's see. Alright, we'll get one more chapter in and we're going to call it for this episode, okay? Alright, so this one's called Chapter 3, The Tool, December 12th, 2011, San Francisco, 3:10 a.m. Tim opened his apartment door and slammed it shut behind him. He was covered in sweat, and his breathing was fast and harsh. He doubled over, and his face was red, and he fought to stay on his feet. Even exhausted, he felt more alive than he had for a long time. After a few minutes, he pulled out the phone and examined it. It was a new phone. No contacts. No information stored on it. He put the phone on a nearby table and stood up and looked around his tiny cluttered apartment. Through his front window, he had a decent view of the street, and if the windows weren't covered with blankets, some mornings he'd have a spectacular sunrise. He realized it had been a long time since he'd watched a sunrise. The apartment had a dank, sour smell to it, and he sniffed the air with renewed awareness, and he smelled himself. Oh, fuck, man. Damn. He realized he was personally responsible for most of the hanging sourness in the air. He ducked into the bathroom, closed the door behind him, and turned on the light. It took a moment for the bulb to click on. It almost seemed the light resisted for a moment and then hummed and flickered in. Without a thought, Tim had the shower on and he sat on the toilet to allow the shower time to heat up. The bathroom was in bad shape. The paint had been peeling when he took it over the previous year as part of a gun trade, but neglect had continued the peeling until there were multiple shades of faded color. Obviously, the landlord would just slap on a new layer of paint whenever somebody moved out, and judging by the layers, Tim counted at least 6 coats, each a different shade. There was cracks on the wall, lots of dark, moldy mildew around the base of the shower, and the mirror on the wall was cracked, and the bottom edges of the mirror were rust-colored, black. The tile on the floor was stained yellow, and every so often you could see drops of brown. It always took a while for the water to heat up, and when it was good and hot, there was only 4 to 5 minutes of it. Tim saw the first signs of heat with wondrous steam. He stripped down. His bare naked feet craved the heat of the shower as the cool tile beneath his feet chilled him. Tim pulled back the shower curtain and stepped in. The water felt like heaven against his weary flesh, and he leaned into it and savored each drop as it soothed him and his nerves. He sighed, a huge sigh, and felt the weight lift from his shoulders. Tim was an average-sized guy, standing roughly 5'11". He was a little on the chubby side, with a gut that stuck out more than it should, and it had been a while since he had been able to look down and see his lower regions. His face was rough, and he needed to shave bad. His 6 o'clock shadow had become a 7-month-old beard. His brown eyes were angled and gave him a permanent doped-up look. He had a brown, medium-cut hair, which was cut a bit uneven. He thought the uneven cut gave him a cool vibe, which someone like Brad Pitt could pull off, but all it managed to do for Tim was make him look like a guy who cut his own hair. His teeth were in decent shape, given the circumstances they were forced on a daily basis with the drugs and cigarettes. He had lots of tattoos, many of which he could not recall getting. There were no rhyme or reason to any of them, except one. On his chest was a heart tattoo with barbed wire wrapped so tight it cut into it, and blood spurting out of the top. This was his first and only tattoo that had any significance to it. When he thought about it, he'd feel an ache in his chest, and it was the ache he tried his best to fight and forget. He started to drift and noticed the temperature had started to drop. No. He quickly grabbed the bar of soap and started scrubbing like crazy. He scrubbed as if he was trying to wash away the past 6 years of his life. He scrubbed so hard his skin welted up. He washed his body, face, and hair within 20 seconds and rinsed off. When he jumped out, he was shivering. "I fucking hate this place," he hissed. He grabbed a towel from the ground, and it was damp to the touch. He dried off and looked at himself in the mirror. "Homie, you look like shit. We need to clean up a bit." He opened a medicine cabinet, which had various empty pill bottles and other people's names, and he tossed them to the floor. He rummaged around until he found a pair of scissors and a razor. After cutting down the beard with the scissors, he was able to use the razor to trim it neat and clean. That's better. Tim retrieved his purple toothbrush and brushed his teeth. He noticed the pink toothbrush that had been laying on top. It was worn down and needed to be replaced. He had avoided thinking about her the entire time back in his apartment because he knew she was going to be a problem. Joey was more of a tweaker than he was, and one of her things she'd get stuck doing was brushing her teeth. She swore she wouldn't be one of those toothless bitches. Both Joy and he had tried many times to clean up, but one of them would eventually bring the other down. Tim recalled what the large stranger had said: clean her up or ditch her. Both of those options seemed impossible to Tim. Joy was a pain in his ass and she drove him nuts, but in his heart, he knew she was the only person who really loved him for him. She'd have to clean up. That's all there was to it. She must have felt him thinking about her, because she groaned from the bedroom. "Hun?" she asked. He grunted and went into the bedroom. He sat on the edge of the bed and she leaned into him. Her cheek was warm on his back. You smell good. How was the night out with the boys?" He paused. What was he going to say about Rory and John? For that matter, what was he going to say about suddenly being completely clean? He shrugged. "You know what? You probably wouldn't believe me if I told you." Joy sat up in bed and reached around to caress his face, and her hands felt the neatly trimmed beard. She pulled back and turned on the small lamp. "Wow, you cleaned up. Something looks different about you. What's going on?" He looked at her long and hard. Joy was petite little Asian firecracker. She was only 4'10", but carried herself like she was the queen bee. Her almond eyes were a light brown in shade, and when she was happy, her eyes smiled. When she was pissed, her eyes would pierce deeply. She had many tattoos as well, but hers were thought out, and her canvas, as she put it, was a constant masterpiece being attitude. She had various Asian-inspired pieces. She was deeply tanned, and even with all the months that had gone by with next to no daytime activities, the complexion never faded. She was stacked for her size, and it was her build that attracted Tim to her in the first place. Over the years, she had put on a little weight, but nothing that was detrimental to his desire for her. Tim thought about lying to her, explained $1,000 a day and mysterious phone calls and no more drugs could lead her assumptions down many roads, so he decided to just spill his guts. Okay, so me and the guys decided to make a little extra cash by smashing and grabbing. Well, it went bad. She turned her gaze firmly on him and tilted her head and her mouth opened slightly with concern creeping across her face. How bad? The cops coming? He shook his head and extended his arms. The scars from where the compound fractures on his arms had jutted out were clear as day. Wait, where did you get those scars? Okay, baby, listen to me. These are scars from where the guy we were going to jack broke them. She looked confused. You must be fucking stoned, 'cause you only been gone for a few hours. There's no way you could have broken your arms and healed up. That shit takes like months to heal. Tim got frustrated. If you let me fucking finish, I'd explain what happened. She crossed her arm, leaned back against the decaying wall, and that served as their bed's headboard. Tim explained how the night had gone down, and she was silent until the end. Are you serious? You expect me to believe that bullshit? Who is she? Tim was floored. What? Who is she? Obviously you're fucking some other bitch. I mean, you come home and shower and clean up, expect me to believe that some big-ass brother man killed John and Rory, snapped your arms, and then offered you a gig making a G a day? Oh, and healed you up like fucking Jesus Christ? Tim paused and looked at her. And cleaned me up from the shit. I'm straight. I don't need the shit anymore. Joy looked at him. Bullshit. You know you want it. She leaned over and retrieved a pipe and a lighter. She grinned at him as she went to put it in her mouth, and Tim smacked it from her hands. I said I'm straight. He took her by the wrist. I want you to be too. I want you to be too. Seriously, we don't need that shit. I need you, though. I need you. She pulled away and jumped out of bed to retrieve the pipe. What the fuck? What the hell did you just do that for? Tim stood up and chased after her. Hey, I said fucking leave it. I'm not fucking no other bitch. I'm telling you the truth. Will you please just... Tim saw something out the corner of his eye. He turned to look. Nothing was there. Joy paused when she saw his body jerk stiff and looked in the same direction. What? She asked in a whisper. What is it? He didn't know why, but he felt they weren't alone in the room. His arms got goosebumps, and he was frozen. Joy also felt something, but couldn't tell what it was. They stood there silent for 20 seconds until the silence was interrupted by a ringtone. Tim turned to face the kitchen. Whose phone is that? Joy asked in a calm tone. Who do you think? Tim walked over to the phone and said, Hello? A pause, and then he walked to Joy and handed the phone to her. She slowly reached out to the phone and looked at Tim. What? She asked cautiously. It's for you, Tim said dryly. She listened for a moment and could hear soft breathing on the other end of the line. Hello? She said. Hello, Joy sighed. Everything Tim has told you is true. He works for me now, and I'd like for you to help him. To prove to you that what I say is true, I'd like you to close your eyes for a brief moment. Joy looked confused. Close my eyes? The voice was deep and soothing. Yes, please. She closed her eyes. It was then that she felt the warmth pass from her head to her feet. Unseen by her or Tim, one of the watchers, Azrael, was standing behind Joy. Azrael pressed her hands firmly on Joy's head. Now, Joy, this will be uncomfortable. The watcher started chanting and had her other hand caressing the Gaklakun. Joy dropped the phone and fell back into the watcher's arms. To Tim, she seemed to be floating in air. Tim grabbed the phone and started to freak out as Joy's eyes rolled back into her head and liquid oozed out of her skin. What's happening to her? Tim yelled in the phone. The same that happened to you. It'll be over in a moment. When it's done, please hand her back the phone. Tim waited, and just as ᶠᶸᶜᵏ had said, she was completely coherent. Tim handed the phone to her. What just happened? Why do I feel so weird? What am I lying on? She was shaking slightly and her head was spinning. She stood up and stared at Tim. She put the phone to her ear again. You are cleansed, the same as Tim. Do not fall off the wagon, as they say. You will not get another chance at this. I now know why you do the things you do. To be treated as such by your own father. Such a horror. Such secrets you have. Many of which you have not shared with Tim. Like the suicide of your brother. You were there. You could have prevented it. You were indirectly responsible. Joy began to cry. How could this be happening? Enough! Okay. I get it. I believe. I believe. The voice on the other end paused. Good. And we understand each other. Helped him for what he will need to do. He will need you, and that means I need you. Do not disappoint me. Now let me speak with Tim, please. She sniffed and handed the phone to Tim. Hello? Hello, Tim. She is as clean as you are now. I expect you two to stay that way. Do you understand me? Tim nodded as he said, yes, I understand. The line went dead and Tim stared at the phone. Looking around the room, Tim could tell they were alone again. Joy was hugging her knees and lying down in the bed in a fetal position. I feel so fucking dirty, she said between sniffles. I feel you. Water's cold, though. Tim pointed at the bathroom. I don't care. She got up, walked past Tim, closed the bathroom door behind her softly. Tim heard the shower kick in and could faintly hear her sobbing increase. His chest ached and he wanted badly to comfort her. He didn't know what the man said to Joy on the phone, but it affected her in a way he had never seen before. He glanced at the phone again and wondered, not who the man was anymore, but now what the man was. But more now what the man was. Okay. So I'm going to end it there. So that's up to chapter 3. So we can see ᶠᶸᶜᵏ and the Watchers definitely have some very interesting abilities. I mean, the ability to cleanse addiction from somebody, you know, that's something else, right? So anyway, I hope you guys like these first 3 chapters. We're going to continue going and see what's going to happen next with Tim, Joy, ᶠᶸᶜᵏ, Zanari. And I hope you like it so far. So that is the first 3 chapters. This is episode 1 of the reading of Convergence 2012. I hope you guys like it. That's it for now. If you like it, please subscribe. Tell all your friends. Share the shit far and wide. I gotta go pick my son up. Perfect timing, right? Alright guys, as always, be good to each other.